Happy Pride Month to my fellow LGBTQIA plus viewers of this channel. As a fellow gay myself, I decided to make a couple videos regarding this month and my love for films. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the movies that came out this year that feature prominently gay people either in the movie themselves or behind the scenes. Love Lies Bleeding. This easily has one of the best portrayals of a lesbian couple this year, with the actors having such great chemistry and the writing giving them an interesting dynamic that feels real and cinematic. Love Lies Bleeding, directed by Rose Glass, starring Kristen Stewart and Katie M. O'Brien in a 80s retro crime thriller. One thing I can easily point out is the soundtrack and song choices throughout this film, making some of the iconic scenes in this film even more memorable than they already were. The editing of this film feels so specific, and there's just so much attention to detail to what tone they're trying to present throughout this film. I love the subtle horror elements and the way that it's presented with the editing and cinematography. The plot and atmosphere is then strengthened because of it. The story is always interesting and constantly fast-paced. The movie is great at building suspense and taking me places that I would never have expected for this movie to go. Always staying one step ahead of me. You know, the worst thing a film that takes place in the 80s can do is be predictable and boring, which this movie never is. The writing is also witty and has this dark humor to it, which also pays attention to the current setting. You know, we have the costume design that feels like it's paying tribute to the time it takes place in rather than just nostalgia baiting. I'm basically saying that the clothes they wear feel authentic. Usually media that takes place in the 80s or 90s go way too far with that style to an unrealistic point, but this film is able to use this time period in a way that takes advantage of it while not exploiting or overusing it. The time period is purposeful and not just there for the sake of it. The film takes full advantage of the time period it takes place in to set up the best vibe that I've seen for a movie this year. The acting overall is great, with Katie M. O'Brien bringing in a lot of energy to this role, with Kristen Stewart balancing that out with a more subdued performance. Ed Harris also brings in this uncomfortable atmosphere that adds to the horror elements in a way that I just always have to appreciate. Overall, a movie that is a ton of fun and is just able to create an authentic feel with its intriguing story and great writing. You guys remember Saltburn from last year, which was one of those movies that I watched multiple of times with friends, both sober and not, because it's just one of those experiences that make the movie better than it actually is. You know that if you actually watch the movie by yourself and pay any sort of attention to it, then you probably will realize the many plot holes, dumb decisions, and bad writing that the movie probably contains, like some kind of post-film clarity. Well, imagine that type of experience, but with a movie that you know will hit in any type of situation. Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino and starring Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor in this hyperactive, romantic drama involving the most intense games of tennis you'll ever see. From the outside, you would never expect this film to contain that much gay energy, unless you've seen the infamous clips where we see, some of the most homoerotic scenes you'll ever see in a movie involving sports. There's many clips. For example, there's a clip that shows the two male protagonists making out fully for a good minute and not even regretting it right afterwards when they realize that they're making out. There's also confirmation of Josh O'Connor's character being bisexual when he's scrolling through Tinder. There are so many other clips that are just vaguely gay that make the movie iconic because of how unsubtle they are with it. Luca being gay himself and many of his movies involving inherently queer characters makes the queerness in this movie not a surprise. Yet the iconic gay scenes in this movie are just so insane because of how close the characters are and how natural this friendship feels. The movie itself is absolutely amazing, with every element of this movie feeling hyperactive. The soundtrack really adds to this intense energy to every single scene it's featured in. It really adds to the atmosphere, especially at the tennis scenes. The writing is meticulous, with so many shocking moments that feel satisfying with how they build up to these certain moments. You could tell that the screenplay was strongly written with how certain moments come from what the characters do physically. Certain actions that the characters do hold so much intent and meaning, with a highlight being from the final tennis match, which has one of the craziest moments of this movie. With stuff like this, it can make the movie infinitely rewatchable, but it's also just the fact that the pacing is so deliberately fast in a way that feels purposeful. The movie gets straight to the point without missing out on the impact certain scenes can have. The film knows when to take a breather or hold a scene to make it have more impact. The cinematography is absolutely impressive. It had me questioning on how they even filmed some of this. The tennis matches feature a lot of these diverse shots, from the perspective of the ball itself to watching the players from underneath them. The movie has so many great elements that I could just talk about my love for this movie for hours. We haven't even gotten to the acting, which is the best I've seen this year, with every main actor putting in their A game and having the best chemistry I've seen this year. In order to make homoeroticism in movies feel natural yet bold, you need to have the most chemistry between actors, and I feel like we have that here. It's truly just one of those movies that I feel like Gen Z will continuously eat up and talk about way more than Saltburn once it hits digital. Watch my words. I saw The TV Glow, directed by Jane Schonbrun and starring Justice Smith and Bridget Lundy Payne, in this weird little movie that is hard to talk about without spoiling it. I'll try my best though. The movie is truly stunning to look at, with the coloring done in this way that feels so vibrant yet subtle. The easiest way I can explain this movie and how it feels is that it's haunting in this nostalgic way, kind of like Skinamarink, but with a plot. The way it's filmed makes use of its setting of a small town, which is used as a set piece to the overall story. The way everything looks also adds to the encompassing feel of something that once was. The coloring, setting, and soundtrack in the first half of the film feels pleasing and has this nostalgic aura to it. The time period is also taken advantage of, with the film utilizing analog horror to its full potential. Finally, a movie that does this in an interesting way. Sorry, Skinamarink. The film also just feels like lost media with how different it feels and it just is as a movie, which is ironic considering how hard it was to actually watch this movie. Yeah, I'm calling you out, A24. Fuck you for putting this in less than 500 theaters, you assholes. There is this fake 90s show in the film that the characters fall in love with. It pays tributes to other 90s shows like Buffy with the Vampire Slayer, Twin Peaks, Power Rangers, and so many other shows that people would feel nostalgic for, but also remaining original with it having its own premise and everything. All of this to empower the story of the movie and its thematic elements, which make it so unique. I'm going to go into a bit of depth within those specific elements, so I would advise you to skip to this time frame if you haven't seen this movie, because it's something you really don't want to miss. And I'm also not going to go over the plot, so this can seem very confusing to people who haven't seen this movie yet. Okay, so time to bring up the elephant in this room, which is that the fact that many people perceive it as a trans allegory, which is made deliberate by the filmmaker with the plot and writing. The way that it's done is absolutely perfect and haunting in every way. The way people also interpret what the film is trying to say in both a positive and negative way is something that I found interesting. The ending in particular is tragic, as our character struggles to accept the false world that they are currently living in over freedom and acceptance of true self. The ending in particular, which you can see the filmmaker telling us as the movie that it's never too late to accept yourself for who you are, while also serving as a reminder of what can happen if you don't. We see the main character, after living such a long life in this simulation that the antagonist sets up for him, he ends up breaking and screaming. Justice Smith really shows his range here as an actor, considering that he put up a more subdued, quiet, careful performance throughout this film, so this guttural scream he let out in the end really caught me off guard in the best way possible. There's honestly so much more to say about the ending and the movie overall, with how it tackles other themes of escapism through media and gender dysphoria, which is, oh yes, stuff I really love talking about. So I'm gonna save it for a later video about this movie. I know I say that a lot, but truly I think this movie deserves so much more of a longer and deeper analysis, because there's just so much content to dig into here and so much that appeals to me personally, and it's all done really well, and I really can't wait for Jane's next movie. When is it gonna come? When are they releasing it? I need it now! I always love it when a directorial debut ends up becoming one of my favorite movies of the year, because it's not only inspiring to aspiring filmmakers as myself, but it's also genuinely impressive to have a critically acclaimed film right out of the gate. By the way, I did 1 second of research and I found out that this guy, he's in his late 30s, but he looks like he's 20. Anyways, Problemista is directed by Julio Torres and it stars himself in a comedy that is this surrealist satire on the world that we currently live in and the struggles that comes with following your dreams. The most impressive thing about a film is that it holds so much identity in regards to the way it's filmed, the story, the comedy, the set designs, the costuming, just etc. There's so many different moments that feel unique to Julio's vision. Did it in a way that feels instantly recognizable and appealing. It's just so cool to see. The story itself is just so intriguing as it depicts his struggles of trying to become a toy designer with ironic designs that no one would actually want in real life, while having to deal with a Karen-like character depicted by Tilda Swinton, who brings on such a strong performance as usual. One interesting thing that this film did was flip the character trope on its head. You know, as she is indeed an antagonistic force towards our protagonist, and just a chaotic person in general, we learn a lot from her perspective and can understand where she comes from with how she is, and realize how she got so far in life being the way she is. But the protagonist sees this and is able to use what he learns from her in a very ironic way, which correlates with the irony of his unconventional toy designs. The toys presented throughout this film are great visual gags that bring such a ridiculous and fun tone to this already zany film. The story throughout depicts the struggle that many people could relate to, or at least resonate with, especially with Julio's great visual storytelling that feels intricate with the filmmaking overall. You can tell he's definitely been through this exact story of the difficult immigration process and a tough, competitive, and exploitative entertainment industry that he fought through up until this point. And as a gay man, he truly made his mark with his own vision and style. Okay, these are some of my favorite films of this year, so please make sure to check them out. I have another video for Pride Month, which will be coming out next year. What the fuck? It'll be coming out next month. Jesus Christ. In the meanwhile, though, I'll be trying to upload a little bit more now that I have the time. Thank you for watching.